So those 12 jurors, 22 witnesses, 2 days of deliberations, and a guilty verdict. Donald Trump is the first former president to be convicted of a felony, but it is far from over.
So we're going to be appealing this scam. We're going to be appealing it on many different things. He wouldn't allow us to have witnesses. He wouldn't allow us to talk. He wouldn't allow us to do anything.
Former President Trump's legal team pledging to appeal the verdict, and sentencing could be stayed during any appeal. So that could push any punishment beyond Election Day. Let's bring in Jonathan Turley and Judge Janine Pirro for more on this. So in terms of the appeal, I mean, the president's team's already thinking about it. They've got until, I think it's the second week of June to file it. Judge, how do you think this proceeds in the days, weeks, and potentially months ahead?
Well, the sentencing will occur on July 11th. And, of course, the defense has the opportunity to say in front of Judge Juan Merchan to make a post-conviction motion that the evidence is contrary, or the verdict is contrary to the evidence. I mean, that's going nowhere. We obviously know that. And once the sentencing occurs, they can appeal, and they can appeal to the appellate court to try to stay that sentencing until the appeal has been ended or perfected. The appellate division handles it first, of course, and it will take probably 6 months to a year, and then probably the Court of Appeals. Although Mark Levin is talking about possibly taking it to the Supreme Court on a common writ and basically a constitutional basis. That's kind of like what happened in the Gore versus Bush case. But the normal process will be he'll be sentenced on the 11th. There's a wide panoply of sentencing options that Judge Merchan has, from 1 1/3 to 4 as a max on each of the Class C felony counts, to simply suspending a sentence or just saying that the sentence, there will be no punishment in terms of jail time, but a simple probation or maybe even a conditional discharge.
I think it's really important also, thank you very much for both of you for being here, to replay President Biden from a moment ago, what he said off the very top as we were anticipating his remarks. Listen.
The American principle that no one is above the law was reaffirmed. Donald Trump was given every opportunity to defend himself. It was a state case, not a federal case, and it was heard by a jury of 12 citizens, 12 Americans, 12 people like you, like millions of Americans who served on juries. This jury is chosen the same way every jury in America is chosen.
So he chose to lead with that. Okay. I want to get your reaction to that, and any color you can give us from inside the courtroom. What you saw from the former president as the verdict was read.
Well, you know, the president emphasized that it was a state, not a federal case. Although being in that courtroom, it was often hard to tell because the feds had decided there wasn't a crime to prosecute for a federal election violation. There wasn't even a basis for a civil fine coming from the Federal Elections Commission. Okay. And yet you had the state prosecutor vaguely suggesting a federal election violation. We still do not know what he was convicted of with any specificity. We know they were unanimous that there was a secondary crime that was the motivation for the dead misdemeanor or misdemeanors being committed. But the judge said you could just pick from the menu. There's 3 here, and you don't have to be unanimous. So you literally could have had a 4-4-4 jury. They could have disagreed as to what was intended, what occurred here. Inside the courtroom, it was, you could feel the weight of history there. It was very solemn at the end. And one of the things that I thought when I was looking around is that the question is, what's the history that's being made here? Part of it is not good. I've always said that this case was illegitimate. I don't see the law here. I don't see the crime. I think this is a political prosecution. Even analysts on other networks have said it wouldn't have been brought against anyone but Trump. It's never been brought against anyone like this. But there's also this question of the weaponization of the criminal justice system. We're not used to that. And we haven't seen it in this country really since the Adams administration, the use of the courts in this type of predatory way. It's going to be interesting to see how Americans react to that. It's in our DNA that we have this resistance to the use of the courts. Yeah. So this may be one of those moments where we make mistakes in the court system. We have a court system that corrects them, so we have to have faith in it. But sometimes mistakes can produce reforms. And the question is, will this galvanize the country to say enough. We've gone too far now.
Yeah, you know, in terms of this issue of weaponization, the former president spoke to that earlier today at Trump Tower. Here's what he said.
I don't mind being out there because I'm doing something for this country and I'm doing something for our Constitution. It's very important, far beyond me. And this can't be allowed to happen to other presidents. This is bigger than Trump. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than my presidency.
You know, Judge, we talked to Matt Whitaker, the former acting attorney general, about this being the beginning of a slippery slope. That, okay, so you've convicted Trump of a crime. Now what happens if Biden gets defeated in November? Does a prosecutor somewhere who's on the Republican side go after Biden?
Well, you don't even have to wait for that, John. You've got tens of thousands of prosecutors in this country who now know they have the green light to go after whomever they want to in terms of political prosecutions. You know, Jonathan is talking about the DNA that we have as Americans. You know, there is instinctively, this was a gut punch to all of us. We do not do this to candidates who are running for president. And I don't want to hear you're not above the law, you're not below the law. I mean, we all argue that in normal cases. You have a man who's a former president running for president being prosecuted literally by a progressive DA who at first look said, nah, I'm not going to go handle this. The Fed's saying we're not going to handle this. And then they violate all these constitutional requirements of a unanimous verdict and a unanimous jury. We don't even know. We just talked about the federal campaign, election campaign violation. There was a federal tax violation as one of the three columns upon which they resurrected these dead misdemeanors. So, I mean, we don't have to wait for Biden to be defeated or elected. They're right now saying, hey, I can make a name for myself for going after the guy who's running for DA, going after the guy who's running for county executive, governor. This is wrong. It is wrong. And I believe that Americans on November 5th will say, no more. We cannot tolerate this as a country. We are not a third world country.
Yet Biden's just said this on anybody who suggests that this was rigged. Listen.
And it's reckless, it's dangerous, it's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict. Our justice system has endured for nearly 250 years, and it literally is the cornerstone of America, our justice system. The justice system should be respected, and we should never allow anyone to tear it down. It's as simple as that.
Final thought from you on that, Jonathan.
Well, there's an irony, of course, because you just had a special counsel who said, I'm not indicting the president because he's an elderly man with a failing memory.
Trump brought that up today.
Yes, and so there is that irony. Look, we agree on the justice system being the touchstone of all of Americans.
Yeah.
But this was an abuse, and I think that people who are fair-minded would say this was basically popular justice of Manhattan, but it wasn't the justice we look for in our legal system.
Judge.
All right.
Sorry, I think Judge had one final thought here, John.
No,
yeah, go ahead.
Look, Americans, we're better than this. And we'll prove it on November 5th, hopefully.
Wow. Well, I think we just bought ourselves some more time here.
We did. There's no question about that. I mean, Judge, let's get you to speak to this idea of Biden saying, don't criticize, don't say anything about this verdict. Let the wheels of justice roll. I mean, I can see the Supreme Court from here. Just a very small piece of it, but I can see it from here. When we remember the crowds that were out in front of the Supreme Court after the Dobbs decision came down, and then what reverberated in legislatures across the country and all the way down Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House, where people said, that's wrong, 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 wrong. We need to do something to turn that back. And now Biden's saying, we must respect the will of the people.
Yes, and in other words, keep your mouth shut, and we know what this administration is capable of doing if you don't. And I think, you know, it wasn't the verdict that people, it was not only the verdict that people said was rigged. They knew it was rigged. I mean, Jonathan, we were talking about this in terms of, you know, the statements, the allegations in the indictment, the opening statement, the charge to the jury. We didn't need to wait for the verdict to say it was rigged. Everything about it leading up to it was that case. But sure, they want to shut any kind of protest down if it's not in their favor. And that's a sad commentary.
It was so great to have you both here on
Thank
set,
you.
out of the courthouse.
We're gonna miss each other.
I know, we had fun in the courthouse, I must tell you. She is a load of fun.
I swear, we have the best legal team in the business.
It's like the last day of camp, right?
Yeah.
See you next summer.
But we're coming back.
Thanks so much.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.
You need to watch this if you struggle with feeling heard. What's something people don't know about unlocking their desires? It's simpler than you think. Picture this. New York, rush hour, everybody's hustling, but sometimes you just gotta stop and ask for what you want. Jesus laid it out pretty clear. Ask and it's yours. Seek and you'll find. Knock and that door's gonna swing wide open. Now, I ain't talking about whispering into the wind here. I'm talking about the kind of asking with conviction, the kind of seeking like it's Black Friday at Macy's, and the kind of knocking that says, hey, I mean business. So what's the real secret? It's all about taking action with a capital A. You gotta be bold, you gotta be persistent, and most importantly, you gotta believe it's already yours. That's not just spirituality, that's street smart wisdom right there. So next time you're aiming for something, remember, just ask, seek, knock. And hey, don't just stand there, go get what you want.